Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Here we are, we're still in the book of Mark. We're in chapter 6. Today we're doing verses 32 through 56 we're going to be going through. And I've titled this lesson, The Power of Jesus' Presence. Okay, so we're going to also jump in here. We're going to get 30 and 31. We discussed those in the last video. We ended with those. We're going to kind of recap with those. Okay, so verse 30. Then the disciples gathered to Jesus and told him all things, both that they had what they had done and what they had taught. And he, Jesus, said to them, "Come aside by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat." Okay, so we see there that Jesus is like, "Hey, you guys were busy, right? You went off on the mission that you went to, and there's so many people around here. Hey, come aside by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while, guys. We need to find a time to just rest in God, in Jesus, okay, in His Word, in prayer." So that's where we ended last week, and let's jump into 32. So they departed to a deserted place in the boat by themselves. So Jesus said, "Hey, let's go. Let's go to a deserted place, right? And get alone, right? Get some alone time." So they jump in the boat, right? They get in the boat to do exactly what Jesus said they should do. Go to a deserted place to rest a while. Commune with God. Get alone and dwell with God and recount all the amazing things that they had seen and done on their missions. Okay, verse 33. But the multitude saw them departing, and many knew him, Jesus, knew Jesus, and ran there on foot from all the cities. They arrived before them and came together to him, to Jesus. So it looks like the multitude had other plans for them, though, right? They're trying to get away. They're trying to uh, get off to a deserted place and rest a while, right? Well, that didn't happen. They followed him, they got there before them. So they're most likely leaving Bethsaida in the boat, okay, which is in the north, and and then they kind of went southern, right? And the multitudes here means a lot of people, right? We know that. And these people had followed the disciples back from their mission trips. These are all the people that, as the 12 were out on their missions in pairs of twos, these people heard about Jesus and started following Jesus, following the disciples to Jesus, right? And so there's this huge amount of people, right? And they saw Jesus and the disciples trying to get away and saw where they were heading and took off running, and they beat them there. Verse 34. And Jesus, when he came out, saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion for them, because they were like sheep not having a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. So then Jesus, they get to shore, gets out of the boat, and he sees all the people, right? And he felt for them. He had compassion for them. And why? Why did he have compassion for them? They had no shepherd, right? They were lost sheep. And Jesus does what? He leaves the 99 for the lost sheep. That's what he does. He goes after the lost sheep, us, his lost sheep. Then he teaches them many things. And these are different than the people that have been following Jesus for healing, okay? That we've been discussing. Like they're not just there for the healing. These people wanted to hear from him. They wanted to hear from Jesus. And it appears that these are the ones with ears to hear that Jesus is continuously saying. Verses 35 and 36. When the day was now far spent, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and already the hour is late. Send them away, that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat." So the disciples are like, yo, Jesus, we're in the middle of nowhere. It's getting late, and there's no in and out anywhere around, right? And these people, they're getting hangry. Can you can you send them away so they can go get some grub? And the disciples are like, hey, Jesus, this is really about them. We're tired and hungry, and we really don't want to deal with these guys anymore. Send them away. But Jesus, though, his heart is, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Right, verse 37. But he answered and said to them, you give them something to eat. And they said to him, shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat? Then Jesus is like, you came to me, you had a problem, right? You came to me with a problem. You feed them, right? You saw the need, go ahead, meet that need. Jesus wanted to partner with them in faith, but they wanted to just get rid of these guys, right? And then the 12 are like, oh, yeah, you want us to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread to feed this multitude. And a denarii was more than one dinar, right? Plural. And one denarius. And one denarius was about a day's wage. So this was 200 days' wages that they're talking here. So they're kind of being wise guys with Jesus, right? Oh, yeah, right. You want us to go spend 200 days' wages to feed this group of freeloaders? Come on, Jesus. So they're saying, we can't do that. I don't have the talent for that. I don't have the gifts for that. I don't have the money for that. And we can be just like the disciples here. When God gives us a task or a mission, we give excuses. When we see a need for something, we want someone else to fix it, right? Verse 38. But he said, Jesus, he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. So 5 loaves and 2 fish. See, Jesus doesn't care about what we lack. He asks what we have. He doesn't ask for an excuse of what we don't have, right? He asks what we do have. And then he gives us the means to do what he has asked us to do, to meet us where we are. How many loaves of bread do you have? Go find out. The disciples come back all like, well, we found 5 loaves and 2 fish. Good luck with this one, Jesus. All right, 39 through 41. Then he commanded them to make them all sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks, in hundreds and in 50s. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them, and the 2 fish he divided among them all. So Jesus is like, okay, you can't figure out how to fix the problem you brought to me? Can you at least have them sit down in an orderly fashion, right? Then Jesus takes the bread and the fish, he looks up to heaven, he blessed the food and divided it up amongst the 12, right? And had them handed out to the people. 42 through 44. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were about 5,000 men. So they ate until they were full. That means it was like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet and getting fat and happy, right? And then the 12, they take up 12 baskets full of the fragments. One full basket for each disciple. And, I'm thinking this was to show them, to show the disciples that they had, they better have some faith in this guy. They better have some faith in this guy they're following around. This guy that they're saying is the Messiah, right? Well, also another interesting, thing historically, this 5,000, well, it was really probably 10,000 plus, okay? Because back then they didn't count women and children. So that was 5,000 men, and there were women and children with them. So good possibility it was well over 10,000 people. Okay, so let's move on. Verse 45 and 46. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent them away, he departed to the mountain to pray. So immediately Jesus has the disciples take off in the boat to Bethsaida, right? He sent the people away and went to the mountains to pray. Well, what Mark doesn't tell us here is why. Why did Jesus immediately break the party up, right? Why did he send everyone away and then go to the mountains to pray? Well, John tells us in his account in the Gospel of John, and that's John 6:14 and 15. Then those men, when they had seen the sign that Jesus did, said, "This is truly the prophet who is to come into the world." Therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. Okay, so we see here, right? Jesus doesn't want to be the king. He knows they have the wrong idea about who he is, who the Messiah is supposed to be. So he sends them away, right? And then goes to the mountain to pray, to dwell with the Father and get some alone time, get some time to regroup with the Father. Verse 47. Now, when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he, Jesus, was alone on the land. Jesus is heading down from the mountains to go meet up with the disciples, right? And he goes down to the shore, down to the beach. He's all alone on the shore. He looks out and sees the 12 in the boat in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the lake, right? Which is pretty impressive because that could be 4 miles away, okay? All right, verse 48. When he saw them straining at rowing, for the wind was against them, now about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea, and would have passed them by. So here's the 12. They're sweating it out, fighting this crazy wind that's blowing them around and causing them to have this horrible time at getting anywhere, right? And again, this makes it even more impressive. Jesus is on the shore, almost 4 miles away. He sees these guys fighting this wind. Okay? And Mark uses the Roman way of telling time here. The Romans, unlike the Jews, had 4 watches. The Jews only had 3 watches. Okay? So the fourth watch was somewhere, it was about 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So the 12 have been fighting this storm all night trying to get to Bethsaida. And sometime between 3 in the morning and 6 in the morning, Jesus comes strolling by, walking on the water. And notice here, it says, and would have passed them by. Jesus wasn't heading, Jesus was heading to the other side. He wasn't going to the boat. He was going to the other side. 49 and 50. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost and cried out. For they all saw him, and they were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." They all see Jesus strolling across the water, and they start freaking out, right? And they're freaking out because they thought he was a ghost. And the myths back then, like the urban legend back then, was if you saw a ghost on the water, well, you were as good as dead, okay? So they're freaking out a little bit here because they think that Jesus is a ghost. But Jesus, he comes to them in their time of need. He was heading somewhere else, but he turned and went to them as they cried out. Jesus will always come to you in your time of need. When you call out to him, he is there. Now, we may not always see him or even feel him, but he is there. But sometimes we just got to go through the struggles. But why? Well, it could be to strengthen your faith, Struggles often cause us to rely on God more. It could be to build character, right? Difficulties help build character. Paul tells us in Romans 5 3 through 4. And not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulations produce perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. These challenges refine us, they help us become more like Christ. And it may even help us draw closer to God when we go through these hard times. It tends to cause us to lean on God for support even more than usual, causing our relationship with God to be strengthened. James tells us in 4:8, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Or we may be just going through the struggle to that we can be taught dependency on God. Okay? These struggles teach us that we're not in control, that God is sovereign. He has it all under control. He will not leave us behind. And in Proverbs 3 5 through 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Look, trust in the Lord, and he will guide your path. Then what does Jesus say? Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. And this amazes me right here. Jesus doesn't do like I would do. Hey, it's me. Knock it off. Quit being a bunch of wusses. Be of good cheer. Right? No. He says, be of good cheer. It is I. First, he gives an encouragement. Be of good cheer. Then, a revelation. It is I. The encouragement comes before the revelation. God is persuading us to be of good cheer, then gives us the revelation that he is here. In 1 Thessalonians 5 16 through 18, Paul tells us, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. In everything give thanks. Rejoice always. If we begin to rejoice, to be of good cheer, we will see that those scary ghosts, well, they're really just Jesus drawing us near to him. Verse 51. Then he went up into the boat to them, and the wind ceased, and they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure and marveled. Then Jesus jumped into the boat. The wind stopped, and everyone got all happy and a little freaked out about what had just happened. And what Mark didn't put into his account here was Peter walking on water, right? We read in some of the other Gospels where Peter walked on the water. Well, why do you think that Mark left that part out? Well, remember, it's believed that Mark is writing the accounts of Peter here, okay? So, two ideas. Peter either didn't want people to judge him for his lack of faith, right? His taking his eyes off of Jesus and almost drowning, right? Which would have been prideful. He didn't want people to think poorly of him, right? Or what I tend to believe, that he didn't want people to think that he was like Jesus, because then people may take their eyes off of Jesus and start following Peter instead. Verse 52. For they had not understood about the loaves, because their heart was hardened. They marveled in verse 51. And here it says that they had not understood about the loaves, that their hearts were hardened. Jesus has shown them over and over and over again who he is. He just fed over 10,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then he walks on water and calms the storm and said, it is I. This could even be translated to I am, which is what God told Moses when Moses asked God what his name was. Jesus is literally screaming to them that he is God, showing them that he is God in the flesh. And they still don't see it. They still don't get it. They're in complete marvel because they have hardened their hearts. Their eyes are shut to who Jesus really is. Verses 53 through 56. When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret and anchored there. And when they came out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him, Jesus, ran through that whole surrounding region and began to carry about on beds those who were sick to wherever they heard he was. Wherever he entered, into villages, cities, or the country, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might just touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched him were made well. So they all get to the other side. And they miss their mark by a little bit because remember back in verse 45, it said they were heading to Bethsaida, right? And here they ended up in Gennesaret, which is right around Capernaum. Okay. Then they get out of the boat, and immediately the people recognize Jesus and swarm him. People start carrying in stretchers of sick people and asking if they can touch the tzitzit of Jesus' clothes to be healed. Remember the little stringy thing hanging down from his garment, right? And look, as many as touched him were made well. And this is unlike the people from when the lady with the flow of blood was healed, where they were thronging Jesus in that mosh pit. Well, now they actually have faith. Things are changing. People are starting to follow Jesus because they actually believe he is the Messiah. They are starting to have faith. So, what do we take from these verses? Well, how we can find rest in Jesus is one thing. We started out with Jesus and the disciples seeking a quiet place, a place to rest. But what happened? The crowd followed them, right? Well, this is a great reminder that life is busy. We need to intentionally find time to rest and connect with God, to dwell with God. So I encourage you all to make time to recharge, especially in the middle of school or sports. Whenever you're pressured by what life throws at you, take time and recharge, dwell with the Lord. Jesus had compassion when he saw the crowd. He had compassion because they were without a shepherd. And despite being tired and hungry and wanting to get some time with the disciples to hear about their mission trips, Jesus stopped and taught them. He did this because he cared about their needs. Jesus' example here shows us the importance of compassion and empathy. When we see someone in need, don't turn away. Don't run the other direction. Step up. Help that person, especially when it's inconvenient. Let's put our faith into action. Jesus challenged the disciples to feed the 5,000, even though they thought they didn't have enough food or money to do it. And Jesus often calls us to act in faith, even when we feel like we can't do it, even when we feel unprepared. Excuse me. Look, guys, God isn't looking for perfection or someone that has it all together, because if he was, I wouldn't be right here in front of you right now. He's asking us to trust him with what we have, and he will provide the rest. God can use what we have. The 5 loaves and 2 fish seemed like it was not nearly enough to feed over 10,000 people. But look what Jesus did with it. And you guys may feel like I do. Like, hey, I don't have much to offer here, God. But see, God takes our talents, gifts, and time, and he uses them in powerful ways. Be encouraged by this. Be encouraged to offer what you do have and trust that God will multiply it. Jesus does and will come in your time of need. In the middle of that storm, the disciples were freaking out. They were afraid and thought they were seeing a ghost. But it was Jesus. It was Jesus walking on the water. And keep this as a reminder that Jesus often shows up in the middle of a storm, in the middle of our fears or our struggles. Take comfort in knowing that when life feels overwhelming, when life just plain sucks, you can call out to Jesus and he'll be there for you. Trust in Jesus' presence, you guys. When Jesus got into that boat, what happened? The wind stopped. It stopped blowing. The storm ended. And when we're in these storms, in these hard times, we just need to trust in Jesus, in his presence to calm those storms. Learn to rely on Jesus. I know that whatever is happening in your life, whatever life throws at you, he is with you and he will bring peace to your storm. You guys don't harden your heart towards Jesus. The disciples marveled at Jesus walking on water, but their hearts were still hardened. And this is a challenge to you guys. Don't miss the signs of Jesus working in your lives. I encourage you to be open to seeing how God is moving in your lives. Keep your heart soft and ready to trust him. Your faith can grow through challenges, through trials in life, just like we saw with the disciples. They had to learn through the challenges. Just like you and I will often grow through challenges, through difficult times. Take encouragement through those struggles and grow closer to God. Rely on God and let those struggles strengthen your faith in God. And you guys, in closing, by focusing on the power of Jesus' presence, you can learn that no matter how big your problems seem, Jesus is more than able to handle those problems. He's with you in your struggles, and he will guide you, provide for you, and calm the storms in your lives. Amen. So, hey, thank you guys again for watching another video. Thank you for following, and sharing if you are. And hey, I hope this blessed you. I hope that it helps you grow more in love for our Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you.